Okay, Randy, this is going to be a little tutorial on how I think you could get into mining. In particular, trying to take advantage of the triple hotspot where all the activity is. It's a ton of fun, and it's using a type of mining called subsurface mining that is actually, I think, much more interesting and challenging with currently higher rewards than the traditional laser mining. So we're going to look at that. And you're looking at the ship I think you should do it in. This is the Keelback. And after investigating options for sort of budget mining ships, I think this is a good one that's in your price range. So let's take a look at maybe using the Keelback for this and how to build it out and what we could do with it. So here we can see the actual build that I used. It's optimized to get out to the mining location, except the one thing you'll see is that there's a 3A collector limpet controller in the size 4 optional internal slot, and on the way out here that was swapped out for a I believe it was a 4A fuel scoop, but basically a decent fuel scoop to allow getting out to the location without too much trouble. I believe it was about 13 jumps. Took me about that many minutes to get out here, about 1 minute per jump, I think. And that let me get into the system, and then I flew to a fleet carrier and swapped out the fuel scoop, which I won't need while I'm actually mining, for the collector limpet controller, which we'll actually be using while we're mining. So that's the only difference in the build. Some of this stuff might be adjustable if your budget is a little bit restricted, but it seemed kind of within the realm that we were talking about, so I went ahead and did that and optimized for things like thrusters that will are A-rated that we'll need while we're maneuvering around asteroids and that kind of thing. So that's basically why we went with the build that we see. So we'll see how it works. I haven't actually mined with this yet, but we'll give it a shot and see how it goes. So one thing you'll notice is the pulse wave scanner in the utility mounts. We definitely need that. We have the subsurface displacement missile in the hardpoints, a 1A refinery in the optional internals, a 1A prospector limpet controller, also a detailed surface scanner, a collector limpet controller that we mentioned in the 2 cargo racks, and all of that is going to definitely be necessary for the mining that we're going to be doing. So here we are stocking up on limpets. This is on the fleet carrier. It's in a little bit of a different menu, but should be pretty obvious where to find it. So fill your cargo capacity with about 3/4 worth or so, or a little bit more of limpets. Might have to dump some if you're lucky and fill up with low temperature diamonds early. But we've got our limpets. We're going to go ahead and launch and head out to the mining spot, and I'll show you how that works.
Landing gear retracted.
All off-duty comms personnel, please report to the briefing room.
Flight assist off. Flight assist on. Four, three, two, one. Engage.
That we jumped to, that I said was, I think, 13 jumps for me from the bubble. Col 285 sector CC-K A38-2. A bit of a mouthful, but referred to as New Borann by the mining community. So that's where you want to head. After you do your build, swap out your fuel scoop for the limpet controller like we showed at one of the fleet carriers, stock up on limpets, and then we are ready to go. I'm going to be playing in open, and sometimes unexpected things happen, and this is a hot spot for griefers and gankers, and so as soon as I got interdicted, I knew I was probably going to be in a spot of trouble since I'm completely defenseless against pirates and griefers. I asked them to stop as soon as they started attacking me. First I was hoping they would demand something and I could negotiate with them, but then they seemed intent on killing me. I asked them to stop, and they did. So that was a good start. I'm telling them I'm carrying nothing but limpets, so I don't have anything of value. And then I didn't notice at first, but they're asking if I tell them a joke, they'll leave me alone. So this is the kind of thing that does happen in open. I don't recommend playing in open when you're first starting. At this point, I was doing this, as a demo, and I'm not carrying anything valuable, and I don't need the credits right now anyway. But so I kind of like playing in open. If I get ganked, it's not the end of the world. So it took me a second to try to gather my wits and figure out, should I try to jump away, and then eventually they're asking me to tell them the joke, and I say, okay, let me quickly think of something. I thought about the what's brown and sticky. That was the first thing that came to mind, but then I went with my old standby. Time to hold our breath and see if that was acceptable or not. The tension. Oh good, they laughed. So that was my getting interdicted by a couple of gankers experience. They took me down to what, 80% hull. My shields were gone immediately. I since recharged them, but I would not have stood a chance trying to run from these guys. So that was an amusing little interlude on our way to the mining spot, but we'll show that next. We'll go ahead and show dropping into the triple hotspot and how to actually do the mining. And hopefully we won't have any more encounters like that where we get beat up.
Four, three, two, one. Engage.
Okay, so we're approaching the first planet in the system. That's where the ring system that has the triple hotspot is. And you'll notice the hotspots are highlighted. This is because I have previously scanned the rings with my detailed surface scanner. But the first time you approach this planet, you're going to need to do the same thing, which is why you want to bring a detailed surface scanner on this kind of mining mission. To see the hotspots, you need to be in analysis mode and you need to be in super cruise. So if you quit the game and came back and you were close to the rings and you don't see the hotspots, it's because you're not in super cruise. So you're going to want to fly up to the planet, get out your detailed surface scanner, and scan the ring. Of course, I've already done it, so it's not really doing anything here, but the first time you do it, then you'll see it scan the ring, and then the hotspots will show up, and you will be able to locate the infamous triple low temperature diamond hotspot. So what you're going to want to do is locate these three overlapping circles, should be pretty obvious, that have low temperature diamonds hotspots in them. And you're going to try to dive right into the middle of where the three circles overlap. You can kind of see the spot I'm aiming for here, but then you are going to drop in. Might take a little damage if you're going fast. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And there you go. So you see what I just did is I selected one of the low temperature diamond hotspots as a reference point. And we are going to use this to always fly towards that reference point as we make our way through the asteroid field. And that just ensures that we don't actually go around in circles and prospect rocks that we've already seen and waste our time. So that's important. Always fly more or less in the direction of that reference point, and you will not have any problems with going around in circles. So at this point, we're going to start running our pulse wave scanner. And as usual, well, actually, if you haven't done mining before, normally what happens is a pirate will come scan you when you first jump in, and since you're not carrying anything but limpets, he'll leave you alone. Don't bring valuable stuff on your mining expeditions when you first start, because that will cause the pirates to spawn in and attack you, and then you have to deal with that. And since we have low shields and no weapons on this build, that means essentially that we would just have to run. So the basic idea here is that we are going to run our pulse wave scanner and look for rocks that are yellow in color. And brighter the better, but don't be too picky. If you see a yellow glowing rock after running the pulse wave scanner, you're going to want to fire a prospector limpet at that. And then that will tell us what kind of deposits the asteroid has. So usually you want your pulse wave scanner on one fire button or trigger and one on the prospector limpet on the other in this fire group. So here's a rock we want to prospect. We're going to go ahead and look at what kind of deposits it has. Well, I killed my prospector limpet. May have been going too fast when I launched it. So here's another one. And what we're going to do is go to the Contacts tab on the left nav panel, or the left panel. And we're going to look to see what kind of deposits, if any, show up as a contact. This one had a subsurface deposit, but it's not low temperature diamonds, so we're going to just leave that and go look for another rock.
Programming limpet drone. Prospector limpet failed. Prospector limpet engaged.
Okay, so here you'll notice that we have 3 low temperature diamond deposits, which looks very promising. But if you look closely, you'll see the little filled in box that indicates the deposit on the icon on the left is pointing away from the center of the circle, which represents the asteroid. That means it's a surface deposit, not a subsurface deposit. So this isn't worth our time. If we had an abrasion blaster, we could go ahead and shoot those off and scoop them up, but we don't have one, and it's really not worth our time anyway. So you want to look for the ones that have the little box indicating the deposit pointing towards the center of the asteroid, and that's going to mean that it's a subsurface deposit, and that's what we're after.
Programming limpet drone. Prospector limpet failed. Prospector limpet engaged.
Okay, there we go. A low temperature diamond subsurface deposit. Now this asteroid only has one, but that's going to be fine for the amount of cargo we need to actually fill up. This will probably get us halfway there. And if it had like 3 or 4, you've hit the mother lode, and that's what we're really looking for. But we've got one here. This is going to be great. So this is going to give us the option to go use our subsurface displacement missiles to blow out the chunks of low temperature diamond fragments, and then have our collector limpets go scoop those up. So what you'll see next is that I'm going to use my vertical and lateral thrusters and a little bit of forward thrust to maneuver around to where the deposit is on the asteroid, and then we're going to have to compensate for the rotation of the asteroid a little bit, and then shoot our displacement missile into the spot having the thing. So go ahead and we'll see how that goes, and then I'm going to pause it again and explain how the actual subsurface mining mechanics actually work.
Asteroid scan complete.
You'll see I just switched to my
Scope
fire group that has the displacement missile in it. And again, we're using our thrusters to maneuver around here and get to where the deposit is.
Programming limpet drone.
Okay, so what's going on here? We just fired our subsurface displacement missile at the area right around where the subsurface deposit is below the surface of the asteroid. And usually you'll be within 200-300 meters. If it's like 800 meters, it means it's on the other side of the asteroid, and you're going to need to maneuver around to the right location. And the maneuvering can be tricky, especially if the asteroid is spinning quickly. But what happened here is we press the trigger and we are holding it down. That's very important, and one of the things that I wasn't quite sure how the mechanics worked when I was first trying this on my own, and it took me a while to figure out. We are holding it down, and that activates a drill. And then on the left is essentially a map of the density of the asteroid and where the deposits are. And those blue vertical stripes you see are the actual place where, so those are going to scroll across towards the left side, or actually it's more accurate to say that your little indicator will scroll to the right. And you need to release the trigger when you're in one of those blue lines, or very close to one, to actually successfully extract the mineral deposits in the asteroid. So let's see what that looks like. So here you'll see that I've successfully landed on those blue lines a few times. And there I failed. It just kills me every time I miss one of those, because you need to maximize your yield. And here you can see the asteroid's rotating away from me, and so I missed my shot, so I need to line up again. And I have it set up so that when I fire one of these displacement missiles, it will automatically launch collector limpets if my maximum limpets are not deployed. Okay, there was another successful extraction, and you'll see there's a percentage remaining kind of in the middle left there of how much resources are left in this asteroid. And the smaller the blue lines, like the single lines are the best, the 2 lines are the next best, and so on. That means that's the amount of resources that are going to be consumed by that extraction. So you can get more shots at the asteroid if you go for the smaller lines or groups of lines than the big 3 or 4 chunks. So if you can hit all single lines, that would be the best, because you'll get the absolute most shots, although that's unlikely because there usually aren't that many. So Here you can see we've got our collector limpets. We've exhausted that one, so now we're just going to sit here and let our collector limpets do their thing. We only have a couple limpets here. It's a limitation of this build because the keelback doesn't have enough space to store multiple limpet controllers that can really let us get, like, say 4 or 6 limpets out at a time, which would be ideal. And for me, this feels a little slow because I'm used to mining in a Python where I can get a lot more limpets out. If possible, you can try flying closer to the rocks to help your limpets not have to travel as far. So you can play with that to try to maximize your time on station getting all these minerals loaded up on your ship. At this point, you've done the hard work and you can just kind of relax for a bit. Maybe even go AFK, although, you know, it's always a little risky. Maybe there will be a pirate that spawns in or something, but it'll take a couple minutes usually for the limpets to do their thing, and then finally you'll get your last rock loaded and head on and see if you can find another one to fill up that cargo hold. So that's the process, and it's not going to take long for one of these keelbacks that does not have a huge amount of cargo to fill up and be able to go and sell. You see we got 39 low temperature diamonds just from that one asteroid, and we only need to fill up 64, so we're in really good shape starting this mining run.
Programming limpet drone. Prospector limpet failed. Prospector limpet engaged.
Well, here's another good rock. We've got 2 subsurface deposits of low temperature diamonds, and I don't think we'll even be able to pick them all up. We only have 64 slots of space, and so probably we'll get through this first one, and we'll probably be filled up and ready to go sell. So that didn't take too long, and this has been a pretty expeditious mining trip for this keelback. So I think this is a great kind of budget mining build. So here you'll see us going through that same loop. At this point, I'm not trying to hit the smaller blue lines or groups of blue lines, just because I know we don't need much to fill up. So we're not trying to maximize our yield at this point. On my Python, I have 192 slots that I need to fill to get completely full, so I usually am trying to get as many as possible so I can be as efficient as possible. But in this case, we're just going to blast as many out here as we can and then see where we are. We're probably going to have to dump some limpets here because we're going to fill up our cargo hold before we get all the LTDs in. Look at all those chunks flying out. Oh, so good.
Cargo hold at maximum capacity.
Yep, and there you go. The cargo hold is at maximum capacity. So let's go dump some limpets. I can probably get rid of most of them at this point. We're almost completely full. Maybe leave a couple just in case my limpets expire, which they do often, running into the rocks, and you know, if you fly into them. But look at all those glorious low temperature diamonds that are out there waiting for the collectors to scoop them up. So we didn't quite fill up on that first deposit, but we're pretty close. So again, it's just follow the same procedure. Get your displacement missile in there, and then try to get the drill to land right on the deposit. And I think at this point we're going to have enough. We've got 58 in the hold, and we only have 64 room for 64 total. So we're going to go ahead and dump our remaining 2 limpets, And now we're just going to wait to get filled up and then go find a fleet carrier to take us back to the high sell point and reap the benefits of this mining build.
Cargo hold at maximum capacity. Cargo scoop retracted. Limpet drone error. Deploy cargo hatch.
Well, there we go. We are at maximum capacity, filled with low temperature diamonds, and feels a little sad to leave our collector limpets and some LTDs still floating out there in space, but that's what we're going to do because we don't have any more capacity. So we're going to the next system over. You'll see that I have it bookmarked as overflow parking. This is the A38-5 system. I believe we're in the -2 system. And this is where the fleet carriers, a lot of the taxi service hangs out. So we're going to get out of mass lock, and I probably forgot to store my hard points. So yeah, it says I can't frame shift drive, so we'll stow the hard points, and here we go. Got to watch out for being interdicted on the way, and if it's an NPC, it's probably going to be fine, and if it's a player character, you better hope they negotiate with you, or you're probably going to lose all of that work and not get any profit. So when in doubt, go to solo or play in the private group. I would always just play in my private group, but no real reason to go into solo. And here we go. We're going to go try to locate the station that we saw on the comms was announcing that they were going to be leaving soon. So that's what we're going to do next, is try to find them. So I wasn't paying attention because I was looking for the LC, which is the carrier we want to take back. And thought this might be a player character, but turns out it's an NPC, so we're just going to run from him. He didn't even demand anything, so he's just a griefer NPC instead of a pirate. So we're boosting away, and I'm just going to actually just get the frame shift drive going, and probably should be able to low wake back out of here. And he might interdict me again, in which case I'll just play the little interdiction game and not worry about it. So always a risk when you're carrying a bunch of high-value cargo. So watch out for those interdictions. Don't go away from the keyboard. Or you could have like 180 tons and step out to the kitchen and come back and find out you've been blown up, which happened to me, I think, as I told you a while ago. So we're going to go try to find the LC again. I need to go check the comms and see if they said what planet it's at, because there's so many fleet carriers here that it's hard to identify them. But if I get lucky, I'll see it. I probably scrolled right past it. Yeah, I got all the way to the bottom of the list. So the best thing to do is to check when on the system channel, and oh, here we go again. Check on the systems channel, and then they'll usually announce like the system they're in. Well, if you're in system, if it's in the other system where we came from, they'll announce what system they're in. Usually it's this overflow parking system, and they'll usually say what planet they're near so that you can go there, and then it's a small number of carriers to check on the system map. So we can see here, I think they announced it's planet 4. And at that point, we can go look for planet 4 and look for the LC. Oh, there it is. I'll also bookmark it, so since I know this one provides ferry service, it might be useful to have that bookmarked in the future to see if they're around and running the ferry service. But at this point, we're just going to fly over to our trip back to the bubble, and then go through the it's not going to be too long before it's leaving, so we should be able to get there with a few minutes to spare and get our lift back without having to go do 13 or 20 or however many jumps it is back to the cell system.
You are welcome at this carrier, Commander. Let us know if you're looking to dock. Attention, carrier jump sequence has been initiated. Docking request approved. Head to your allocated pad.
So we arrived with plenty of time to spare. We're just going to land and get this little mining keel back to the place where we can sell our low temperature diamonds, and then we can probably hitch a ride back and do it all over again. And we will have enough credits for a mining python, which I think is kind of the sweet spot for low temperature mining, probably in just a couple trips. We need around 100 million, I think, for the mining python build that I did. So that's what we're going to go ahead and probably try to target getting in this keel back. So we went ahead and took the carrier jump. If you haven't experienced it, you should totally experience it for the first time yourself. I don't know if you said you've done a carrier jump or not, but we are now in the cell system. And one question might be, well, how do you, if there wasn't a fleet carrier leaving and you wanted to figure out where to go to sell your haul, what areas are selling the most at the best price, or I should say buying at the best price, you would go to this miner tool, edtools. Uh-oh. Well, here we go. This is another NPC attempted interdiction, so this won't. Always stay vigilant though while you're when you're alt tabbed out of the game. Make sure you got the sound on so you know when you're getting interdicted. So that wasn't a problem, but anyway, there's a miner's tool which you'll want to have bookmarked. There's also on the Discord, on the Down to Earth Astronomy Discord, there's a channel that has a bot where you can basically check the LTD diamond prices, and it'll look up where good places to sell are. I usually come here. You'll see it saying we should go to Swift Vision in the Lu Pao system, which happens to be where we are. Here you can see the Down to Earth Astronomy. Go to the bot spam channel. You can type bang check space LTD, and it gives you what it says the top 5 prices are. You see Lu Pao right at the top. And there's also a price check announcement when a new system comes on that's selling for a very high price, and you'll see it'll just you can subscribe to these announcements, and it will essentially direct message you when there's a high price alert. So you never have to worry about not knowing where to sell your low temperature diamonds. So in this case, we're going to Swift Vision, and we'll see what we get. The boost sound on this keelback is so crazy. All right, request docking, of course, standard procedure. One build I thought about trying was a shieldless Cobra build. It'd be really fun to accidentally boost in the station without shields, bringing back tons of low temperature diamonds, and then lose everything right at the very, very last minute. But I think this keelback build is really a nice way to go to get started, and this should get the credits for the Python. And this station today is actually selling at an insanely high price, one of the highest prices I've seen. So this is going to be for, I mean, I don't know how long we mined basically 2 asteroids. Maybe took 30 minutes. I wasn't paying attention and I wasn't trying to speed run it. And anyway, here we're going to see the moment of truth. Low temperature diamonds, 110 million credits. That'll work. So that's it. I think if you put this keelback build together, get out to the triple hotspot system, ditch the fuel scoop that got you there, and then swap in a limpet controller. And then go mine and hitch a ride back on one of the fleet carriers that that's providing ferry service, and now you can go build a real mining ship. I mean, this is not a bad mining ship at all. But if you get a mining Python, which you'll have the credits to do, I think after doing this or very close to it, it'll make mining really fun, and you know, being able to fill up like 192 tons of low temperature diamonds and come back and sell them for, you know, 300 million. That just you know, you'll have all the credits you need to do whatever you want in the game pretty quickly, and then can focus on other things like engineering and maybe getting into combat, or you know, just doing what in the game you enjoy. It would be nice if some of the other career modes, you know, were this lucrative, and I don't know if they'll get buffed or this will get nerfed or what. But for the moment, I think I actually really like the subsurface mining, sort of the mini game and just the mechanics of it. So very often, once you sell, you can find a fleet carrier that's heading right back. So I just went and sold, and I looped back and looked on the system chat, found that the Pathfinder was getting ready to jump, and I've got just a couple minutes, I think, left to go ahead and request docking, get strapped in, and then we'll take it back to the mining system. So you can pretty much do this loop. I've had no problem finding fleet carriers to ferry me back and forth. And then you don't need a fuel scoop. You don't need to go manually, you know, do a dozen jumps or more. You can actually park on the fleet carrier and, you know, go do something else. You're safe there. You'll stay on the fleet carrier if he jumps in, and then, you know, it's usually at least 20 minutes till they'll jump again, and then jumps back. You know, you might want to make sure that you undock if you want to remain in the destination system. But if it's one of these ones that's just going back and forth, the worst thing that happens is you log in, you know, the next day, and you're wherever the fleet carrier is, and you can either just wait for it to jump again or go find another one. Of course, there's always a possibility the fleet carrier will go and jump to some completely random system you don't want to go to, but that's, you know, just keep that in mind, I guess. So that's my fairly in-depth, I think, tutorial on how to do the subsurface mining in the hotspot system. Like I said, it's a lot of fun, and I think if you don't have a ton of credits, I think this build that we looked at, the keelback build, is a good one to try. So I would give it a shot and see what you think, and see if you enjoy it. And I think all the community around the fleet carriers and all the system chat, and just people out there, you know, having a good time, and even getting you know, the gankers and the pirates that are out there. It's just it's a very diverse kind of set of things happening, and so give it a try, and you'll probably have questions. Don't forget to stock up on limpets before you head back. I think every miner has arrived in the asteroid belt, and then they go to start doing their mining and realize they forgot to restock their limpets. So don't forget to do that. So have fun and let me know how it goes, and maybe see you out there mining.